Ballet, since its beginnings, has been considered one of the most difficult and graceful art forms in the world. One of the defining factors is the pointe shoe, which allows the dancer to stand atop their toes and float about the stage. This wasn't always the case. Ballet has evolved and changed drastically since its starting point through its culture and its shoes.
In the 15th century Renaissance courts of Italy, the world of ballet was dominated and controlled by male dancers, and women were not permitted to dance. In the 16th century, Catherine de' Medici, after her marriage to King Henry II, brought ballet to the French court. Later on, King Louis XIV performed in ballets himself, popularizing the dance form. In 1661, he opened the first ballet school called Académie Royale de Danse. During this time, women and men were allowed to perform ballet. Women wore modest skirts, restrictive corsets, drawers, as well as the classically worn heeled shoes. It wasn't until 1730 a woman named Marie Camargo, the prima ballerina of the Paris Opera Ballet, decided to create a new kind of dance shoe that promoted smooth lines and movement. She created the satin ballet slipper. This revolutionized ballet into a dance form that allowed a larger variety of movement, giving the illusion of floating we associate with ballerinas today. The satin ballet slipper had no heels, so dancers were able to leap and jump with much more ease and precision. Along with this accomplishment, she decided to perfect steps like the entrechamp and cabriole, which had previously only been performed by male dancers. Marie was the first pioneer for women in the art of ballet.
The next great accomplishment in ballet wasn't until 35 years later, in 1795, by a man named Charles Didelot. Didelot was an esteemed choreographer and teacher who introduced flesh-tone tights that improved the mobility and grace of all ballet dancers to this day. Didelot also had a vision to see dancers fly across the stage. He created a complex rig of wires he called the flying machine that allowed dancers to float barely above the ground as they danced, which gave the illusion of weightlessness. The flying machine was the first link between ballet and the illusion of floating that initially inspired the idea of the pointe shoe. The flying machine was very popular, and a modified version is still used in ballet and theater throughout the world. In 1823, an Italian dancer named Amalia Brugnoli took to her toes as an acrobatic trick in Armand Vistris' Le Fille et le Chevalier. She wore a square-toed ballet slipper and hoisted herself onto the tips of her toes using brute strength alone. This feat was not the light and airy floating that Didelot had dreamt of, but a comical and pantomimed acrobatic display. This was the first recorded attempt of performing on pointe.
Later, a ballerina named Marie Taglioni would perfect Didelot's fantasy of dancers rising on pointe, gracefully flitting about the stage. She was as much the turning point of ballet as the pointe shoe was. The Swedish-Italian dancer was born into a dancing family and was expected to follow her family's legacy. Her father, Filippo Taglioni, was a well-known dancer and choreographer in Italy, along with her brother, Salvatore, who was a dance master in Naples, Italy. She started taking lessons at a young age, but her teacher discarded her because of her hunchback. Her father then took over her ballet training with rigorous 6-hour-a-day practices. Starting at 18, Marie danced professionally in her father's ballets. In 1827, she debuted in Paris at the age of 23, dancing in the Ballet des Siciliens. After her premiere, Marie performed in Paris for 10 more years. The most remarkable and influential thing she accomplished was performing the entire ballet La Suffide in pointe shoes in 1832. Marie became one of the world's greatest ballerinas, and Filippo created his famous La Suffide for her in 1832, the first of the Ballets Blancs, or romantic white ballets. She created her pointe shoes by hand, adding leather to the sole and ribbons to the shoes. She wore a few sizes too small, adding additional support to the box of the shoe and squeezing her foot into a small point. Taglioni danced on her shoes with ease, using less strength than Brugnoli, while dancing quickly and gracefully. The main characteristics of Taglioni's pointe work is the lightness and quiet strength that no other ballerinas had in the period. This made her the ideal ballerina for the Romantic era, popularizing mid-length white tutus in ballet and dancing lightly to resemble a fairy.
Pointe shoes were almost immediately adopted by all dancers in France and made their way to the other dance capital of the world, Russia. The adoption of pointe shoes in ballet was a turning point in both dance history and women's rights. Pointe shoes gave women a headway into the arts at a time when men controlled the majority of all careers and fields having to do with performance.
Once pointe shoes really became pointe shoes, with a hard box and a shank, that probably was one of the most substantial turning points of ballet. I would say women benefited from the invention of the pointe shoe by becoming otherworldly. that gave them the ability to not look like everyday humans, ethereal, like fairies, like, you know, spirits, whatever character they were trying to behold. And I think at first, especially because women were the only ones doing pointe, it gave them the ability to do things men didn't do. But I'd say it gives them the ability to look magical.
Ballet is like the mother of all dance techniques. Most Western styles of dance today can be traced back to ballet, and its codification has been extremely influential in all styles of dance. Ballet was widely respected for the physical strain it takes on the performer. Repeated hard landings on the toes can cause microtrauma in the nails, leading to black toenails. Blood pools under the hard tissue, darkening it, and often separates it uncomfortably from the nail bed. Pointe shoes notoriously rub the toes and heels, causing painful blisters to develop. Although it could cause lasting damage to the dancer's feet, ballerinas endure the pain through pure passion for the art form.
Besides the culture of ballet itself, pointe shoes have been the most modified aspect of ballet. When they first became popular, models were taken up by companies where employees hand-manufactured them. They're still handmade to this day, and some of the companies have survived and thrived since the beginnings of mass-produced pointe shoes. They have been changed and perfected for generations, and while still not perfect, their creation of the shoes is an ever-evolving craft. New technologies are being added as time goes on, and a wider variety of shoes are being made. Dancers no longer have to have a specific foot shape, strength, and flexibility to dance on pointe, because pointe shoe makers have adapted them to be modified and fit any size and shape. The pointe shoe companies customize the shoe by changing the length of the vamp, the width of the box, the strength and break of the shank, and the sculpt of the satin. These modifications have opened up a new market for dancers who have previously been denied ballet because of biological features they could not control.
The most recent culturally important update to the shoe has been the color of the satin. Back at the beginning of ballet, people of color were not permitted to dance ballet. The first black person to join a ballet company was Raven Wilkinson in 1950. She had to wear pale pink colored tights and pointe shoes, as did all BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color dancers after her. Tights were made in this color originally to blend into the white European skin tone, and pointe shoes were made in the same color to continue the line from leg to foot seamlessly. BIPOC dancers have historically and continue to be denied entrance into ballet companies and only offered small corporals, and told the reason was because their lines were broken by the color change between their tights and skin, and therefore considered undesirable to the eye. Not only is there very little diversity in ballet itself, but what exacerbates the issue is that there is often zero diversity in shoe shades. Eventually, dancers of color could wear tights the same or similar color to their skin, but the shoes themselves were still only made in pink pale satin. Dancers resorted to pancaking with makeup to reach their desired skin tone, which was sometimes more expensive than the $100 to $150 shoes themselves. Racial bias advocates have taken a stand against this and rallied for companies to create a diverse range of skin-colored toe shoes. Since 2017, companies such as Gaynor Minden, Suffolk, and Nicolai have adapted to this request and opened up many more opportunities for BIPOC ballerinas. Gaynor Minden began offering shoes in nude for all shades at no additional cost in 2017. I'd wanted to offer brown skin tone since 1986, even before the Gaynor Minden Pointe Shoe and Company were realities, says Eliza Minden. Gaynor Minden helped start the movement for other companies to offer a wider range of skin tone shoes, as they were the first company to do so. Ballet has been through so many changes, but the most influential was the pointe shoe. It continues to change as the dancers and world change around it. But the core aspect of ballet has stayed, storytelling through beautiful artistry. The pointe shoe is merely a tool to portray a story in a more captivating and elegant way.